Imagine being at home, having a good time, and out of the blue a woman knocks on your door claiming to be an HOA secret police officer and demands to search your house. There are some people who seem to have stepped straight out of a poorly written episode of a low-budget sitcom. You know, that kind of person who believes their own lies so much that they start to think they live in a parallel universe where everything revolves around them? One of these days, my peaceful existence took on a whole new level of bizarreness when I was rewarded with a visit from a woman who knocked on my door claiming to be an HOA secret police officer. Yes, you read that right. Copper, secret, from the HOA. For those who aren't used to this alphabet soup, the HOA is the Homeowners Association, a sort of mini neighborhood dictatorship that loves to dictate more than it can, with rules that regulate even the height of the weeds in your garden and the color of your front door. Now imagine someone who already thinks she's the FBI because she's a street manager, but decides to go one step further and pretend she's part of a secret tactical force. That's another category of delusion. The woman came out of nowhere, like a plague on a sunny day. I was just finishing cleaning my balcony, coffee in hand, Sunday off, a peaceful atmosphere reigning, when she appeared with a home-printed badge, laminated with adhesive tape, and an expression that mixed superiority with delirium. Look, I've seen a lot of nonsense in my time as a sheriff, but this one effortlessly made the top 3. She began speaking with that forced tone of someone who has practiced in front of the mirror to look important. "Good afternoon, sir. I'm conducting a routine safety inspection authorized by the HOA, I swear." For a second, I thought it was a prank. I waited for a hidden camera to appear, for a presenter to shout, "I've got you!" But nothing. It was just her, in the fullness of insanity. She started talking about verifying compliance, checking internal environments, and a list of nonsense that she had clearly taken from some army manual or bad spy movie. I, with my limited patience, just watched. I didn't interrupt. I just let her go on and on. Each sentence was a deeper dive into the pit of the ridiculous. And she went down with gusto, with a confidence that would make a politician envious in an election year. The most impressive thing wasn't even the crazy story, but the way she looked around my house, as if she had the right to enter. She was already walking around my balcony, trying to peek through the windows, as if she were looking for a drug dealer hiding behind the curtain. She was so excited about her own theater that she didn't even notice that I was just waiting for her to make a wrong move. And didn't she? When she tried to force the handle of the back door and told me that she had the legal authority to carry out a preventive search, that's when it clicked. I couldn't stand it any longer. I gave a little smile, the same one I use when I catch a brazen liar at the police station, and asked, "Are you sure about this?" She let out an absolutely, with the pose of a soap opera actress. And that's when I decided to play a little too. I took a deep breath, went to my garage, got my badge, and came back to show her who the real officer of the law was. Her reaction was a mixture of panic and route recalculation. You could almost see her brain trying to rewrite the script of her own fantasy in real time. And honestly, I was having the time of my life. But look, that was just the beginning. Because there are people who, instead of recognizing that they've made a fool of themselves and backing down, decide to dig deeper. And from then on, the woman with the lying badge began to sink into a sequence of decisions so bad, but so bad, that it seemed she had made a pact to be publicly humiliated until the end of time. After that show of horrors with the improvised badge and the face on parade on my balcony, I even thought the woman was going to have a reality check and back down. No, she didn't. She backed down like a cornered cat, just to get a boost. The creature not only kept up the secret HOA cop story, but came back the next few days as if nothing had happened. As if the fact that I was the town sheriff was just an insignificant detail in her great divine mission to inspect backyards and windows. At first, I thought it was just stubbornness, but then I realized that it went deeper than that. It was a dangerous mixture of neediness, mania for grandeur, and an almost sexual pleasure in control. It was as if she lived in a world where she was the wronged heroine fighting against the barbarians of urban disorder. In this case, me, a middle-aged man who just wanted to clean the roof gutters in peace. 2 days passed. On Tuesday morning, I opened the living room window, and there she was, across the street, with a pair of binoculars. A bloody pair of binoculars. In broad daylight. You know when you wonder if you're in a Hitchcock movie, or if you've just been targeted by a crazy neighbor? And to make matters worse, she waved. A polite wave, like she's just watching birds. Only the birds in question were my gardening tools and a portable barbecue. I started hearing stories from the neighbors too. One stopped me at the market to ask if it was true that I was building an underground room without permission. Another called me to ask if I had given the go-ahead to change the structure of the house. And an elderly woman came up to me, full of fingers, to ask if it was true that I bred poisonous snakes in the garage. Seriously, snakes. The level of the conversation had sunk into a swamp of no return, and everything pointed to her. The woman was doing guerrilla work with the neighborhood, spreading rumors, distributing invented paperwork from the Security Commission, and the most absurd, she set up a group on the neighborhood app called Olo Vivo HOA, Missão Segurança Total, a name worthy of a cheap reality TV show. In this group, which fortunately one of my sensible neighbors showed me, she posted photos of other people's houses, pointed out irregularities, and posted phrases like, "This residence may hide illegal activities. Authorities have already been notified." I was mentioned in at least 5 of these posts. It got to the point where I had to call an official meeting with the other members of the association, those who hadn't yet been co-opted by fanaticism. Because, yes, she had followers, few but noisy, 3 or 4 equally bored neighbors who saw her as a chance to feel important. People who once didn't even know how to turn on the porch light, but now walked around with a clipboard under their arm, writing down the time the garbage truck passed. At the meeting, I showed prints, reports, and even security videos. Some there were embarrassed, others feigned surprise. But her? Oh, she showed up too, in a light blue dress, a fake pearl necklace, and that same look of someone who firmly believes that she is saving civilization. She spoke for 25 minutes without taking a breath, quoting made-up paragraphs from an HOA manual that never existed, mentioning laws that don't make sense even in science fiction series, and ended by saying that the local sheriff, in this case me, was involved in a conspiracy to undermine the integrity of the neighborhood. I swear, some people swallowed that. People who think that conspiracy theories are more interesting than reality. Because reality is boring, right? But the plot that I was an infiltrator trying to sabotage the morality of the condominium, that was entertainment. At that moment, looking at that woman giving a speech as if she were the president of the Senate, I realized that she wasn't going to stop. She wasn't just crazy, she was dangerous, because she truly believed in her own delirium. And people like that know no limits. But what she didn't know was that I also had my resources, and I was tired of playing peaceful. If she wanted war, there would be war, and not one of those made up in her head. A real war, with evidence, lawsuits, and handcuffs. After the meeting, it became clear that if I wanted peace again, I'd have to nip the problem in the bud. Literally. She was no longer just an inconvenient neighbor with a strange hobby of checking up on other people's lives. She became a public menace, with her own script, faithful secondary characters, and even an imaginary soundtrack. And worst of all, there were people applauding. People who probably never had any attention in their lives, and now found in her craziness a chance to feel part of something, a neighborhood cult. All that was missing was the white robe and the flyer. The following week, she decided to take another step up the ladder of absurdity. She started walking around with a clipboard on which she wrote down the supposed infractions committed by residents, like leaving the garbage out on the wrong day, or hanging an overly colorful towel on the balcony. I'm not exaggerating. One of her reports said, word for word, Residence number 47 exposes vibrant red fabric in a visible place, harming the visual harmony of the community. Red fabric. Vibrant. I swear on everything. One day, I was washing my car, and she showed up with this little notebook in her hand, saying she was going to record excessive use of water on an unauthorized day. The street didn't even have a water rotation. She made it up, probably because the noise of the hose disturbed her sick meditation session in the backyard. At that point, I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or call an exorcist. But that's okay, because while she was feeding her illusion of power with little notebooks and binoculars, I was working in silence. I collected evidence. Security camera footage showing her spying through neighbors' windows. Audio recordings in which she posed as an HOA agent, calling maintenance companies and trying to schedule inspections of other people's houses. In fact, one of the recordings was her talking to a pest control company, asking them to search house number 52, because there is evidence of hidden infestation. Hidden infestation. Is that right? I managed all this because one of the younger neighbors, who worked in IT, offered to help. He installed a surveillance system in my yard with directional audio capture. And yes, maybe that's a bit extreme, but when you're a sheriff and you have a neighbor trying to turn your home into a classified file episode, extreme becomes the new normal. The pinnacle was when she showed up at my door again, this time accompanied by two old men who looked like they'd been forcibly removed from a bingo game. They introduced themselves as the HOA Volunteer Audit Committee. One of them was holding a folder full of printed sheets with graphs, figures, and tables that looked like they had been taken from a bankrupt company's PowerPoint. The other was filming everything with a cell phone, as if they were unmasking an international cartel. I listened quietly, as usual, but inside my head, I could already visualize the final scene. Her sitting in the back seat of the car, with that same lost look of someone who still doesn't understand where it all went wrong. After they left, I called the prosecutor's office. I made an appointment. I took all the material, and I didn't need to say much. The images spoke for themselves. The woman was invading properties, defaming residents, falsifying documents, and what's worse, using the association's name for all this. The prosecutor looked at me, crossed her arms, and let out a, "This is going to be fun." I just replied, "Bring the popcorn." The pre-trial detention order came through in 3 days, but the execution, I made a point of taking care of that personally. Because if there's one thing that nobody can take away from me, it's the pleasure of seeing arrogance dismantled, step by step, by a reality show called Justice. On the day of the arrest, the weather was worthy of a soap opera, one of those hot, muggy days when the sun seems to have been paid to watch your every move with irony. I had discreetly warned some neighbors that there would be an official intervention, just to make sure the witnesses were well positioned, and, of course, because part of me wanted her fall to be public, not for revenge, but for scenic justice. The woman had paraded for so long with the face of a saintly vigilante that there was nothing fairer than a little applause when the mask fell. The patrol arrived slowly, like someone who doesn't want to scare the cattle. I was already positioned in front of her house, arm crossed, saying nothing. She went out into the yard looking like she was about to give someone a ticket for breathing too loudly. She didn't even see the cars coming. She only realized when she heard the short siren, the one that leaves, no doubt. That's when she stopped. Her gaze went blank for a second, her mind processing in slow motion. And then she did what every good lunatic does when reality knocks on the door. She denied it. "This is a mistake," she shouted, already moving towards the car as if she could solve it by shouting. "I'm an HOA agent. I have jurisdiction over this area." The sentence sounded as ridiculous as it sounded. The policeman accompanying her didn't even blink. He just said, "You are being arrested for trespassing, falsifying documents, defamation, and attempted extortion. You have the right to remain silent." And she, of course, didn't keep quiet. She made a fuss. She pointed at me. She said it was all a conspiracy, orchestrated by a corrupt sheriff, that I was manipulating the neighborhood, that she was about to expose a criminal scheme, and that's why they were trying to silence her. It was so pathetic that even the pigeon on the electric wire seemed to be rolling its eyes. One part of her believed it all. The other, well, maybe she already knew that the end had come. While she was being handcuffed, the neighbors started coming out of their houses. Some feigned surprise. Others shamelessly filmed with their cell phones. One even brought a beach chair out onto the lawn. And there, on the sidewalk, she was placed in the back seat of the car, still talking non-stop, as if she were in a fake courtroom that only existed in her head. I watched in silence. I felt neither pleasure nor pity. I felt relief. In the days that followed, the neighborhood became an informal tourist spot. People walked more slowly down her street, whispering, analyzing the remains of what had once been the imaginary empire of the neighborhood sheriff. The group on the app, the famous Olho Vivo HOA, Missão Segurança Total, was shut down. The followers disappeared like rats abandoning ship, and the residents, who had previously been cornered, started to talk more, laugh more, and live more. It was as if an invisible weight had been lifted. Her house was sealed off by the authorities. A yellow ribbon adorned the entrance, as if it were the final bow of the gift the universe had decided to give me. Some people even came to thank me, as if I had saved the neighborhood from a crazy cult. But I didn't do anything special. I was just patient. I was smart enough to let her hang herself with her own rope. A month later, I received the news that she had accepted a plea bargain. In exchange for a lighter sentence, she admitted guilt on all charges. She's going to spend a long time doing community service, ironically, in a center for the elderly, without the right to clipboards. And she has been banned for 5 years from joining any kind of residential association, a clause that, frankly, deserved to be for life. Today, I can laugh about it all. I even had a photo of the HOA sign framed, the one she had polished every fortnight. It now hangs on my living room wall with a little plaque underneath. Here lies the dictatorship of good taste. Every time someone comes to visit and asks me the story, I tell them, and every time I tell it, I'm reminded of how far a person can go who perhaps just needed a hug or intensive treatment with a psychiatrist. But at the end of the day, this whole episode served as a wake-up call. The problem doesn't always come from afar. Sometimes the enemy of peace is that neighbor next door with a notebook in her hand and an overly fertile imagination. Today, I sleep peacefully, with the windows open, no binoculars spying on me, and with a certainty in my soul, no fantasy can resist the weight of a well-placed handcuff. And that's how the HOA secret policewoman discovered, in the most humiliating way possible, that there are people with real badges, and that the real world, unlike the crazy things in her head, is expensive. And if you liked this video, don't forget to leave your like and comment below.